To the residents of Boonsburg, I'm coming to you from a secret location and hiding my identity, as always, to protect myself while I share the knowledge of the Boonsburg Egg to save not only Boonsburg, but also the planet and the rest of the world. As you will see, as you look around, you are within the secret location. And you look closely, all of the knowledge of the universe, the key to all life is located within here, because I have figured it out. Now, first of all, you're probably overwhelmed because it's an amazing collection, and just so you know, I found all of these props rusting away at a junkyard. And they are from all of the amazing science fiction movies and television shows from the past 60 so years, I guess. I mean, there are things from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, from the Twilight Zone, TOS, original series, Outer Limits, TOS, and then we have, Battlestar Galactica. There's things, the Wizard of Oz, for instance. There was one piece from the Wizard of Oz. You'll see, as you look around, look down toward the bottom, you'll see a giant sold check. It says sold on it. That's the money that I got when I sold the actual crystal ball from the Wizard of Oz, which I found on the scrap heap. And for the naysayers, you can just go online and look, and you will find that it's been written up in many newspapers that not only did I sell the crystal ball, find it at the junkyard, but I also donated a portion of the proceeds to the New Jersey State Teen Arts Festival and the New Jersey State Firemen's Home. The problem is you're looking around. Just so you know, there's also a diorama of the Boonsburg Motel. You will see that on. You look for that giant computer, the big giant wide one with Edison's picture on it, and you will see 12 eggs in the half circle and a chicken in the front. And that's the diorama I made in tribute to the Boonsburg Motel, which I believe we will be able to get National Historic Registry on, because unbeknownst to many people in the town, I have found elements of it still sticking up out of the ground. Though it was demolished long ago, I believe we can rebuild it. And if you look down on the floor, for instance, you're going to see a great many of my theories. First of all, it's on how to make the Boonsburg Egg. You will also see about the Egyptian pyramids. And just so the people who don't know yet, that the Boonsburg Egg is not only at the heart of all life in the universe, but it's also the secret of how they built the pyramids. And for the naysayers, once again, all you have to do is look at the hieroglyphs, and you've got the people with the hands held up, and you'll see they're doing it toward there's always this shape, the sun god. Everybody, that's their god. It's in reverence. It's like, actually, it's not. It may be. I should say it may be. But it seems odd that they would draw this sun disk, millions and millions of times, and yet never once draw it as a perfect circle. Could they not draw a perfect circle, or were they choosing not to draw a perfect circle again and again and again? Well, through my research and my inventive mind, I have been able to figure out that shape is a very specific geometric shape that is necessary to harness gravity to be used as a fuel source to roll the giant stones up the ramps. And you can leave them on the ramps, it won't roll back down. And it only takes one person to put your hands up like that and push it. That's how the thing works. And if you look around, you'll also see some of my models. Well, there's a ramp model. An amazing thing about the ramp is they would build hundreds of these ramps going up the sides of the pyramid, and yet the ramps, you don't have to have those angles that are really steep. It said you only needed the 1.5 degree, approximately, maybe 2, but let's just say 1.5 degree slope, and it's easily for one person to just roll it up. Because they had, the two things they had a lot of. They had a lot of rocks, and they had a lot of space. So there was no rush to go up like all the intelligent people say, oh, they couldn't roll it up that hill. Well, of course they wouldn't, you fool. They would do it on the super low incline. What was the rush? It's going to take 20 years anyway. They only had to get up to the next level of stone, which would have been, like, say, 4 feet at most. You know, if you were to make a ramp that's 200 foot long at 2%, you know, or you could go 300 foot, and you still had lots of extra space. And then once they built that layer, and they would put these all around, so it wasn't just like people at one spot, but they'd be rolling these things right out of the, you know, they'd be cutting, all the people would be in the quarry cutting, and then there'd be people on the site placing the stones, and then in between is just a very small crew of people. You know, there's tracks. You know, when you see like those railroad ties looking things that they say, oh, they pulled the sleds across these, and this is how they dumped oil down it. That's all foolish. Because common sense tells you that there's so much sand in that place that if you were to pull a sled across those, quote, things, those wooden tie things, it would have dug grooves in them. So you're proving right there's no grooves dug in them. They simply laid tracks on them, just like we do with railroad tracks to get over the sandy areas. And as you will see, I have lots of videos. If you go and you will look at the videos, you will see that I explain how this works, and I also begin to explain how the Big Bang is actually also a Boonsburg Egg, and it just lays right out there. It makes common sense. You know, the people of string theory keep looking for these squiggly things that everything's made out of, and they can't find them, and but they're there. Oh, you can't find them. My view is, why don't you do Boonsburg Egg theory instead? Which is simply the opposite. Instead of starting with something you can't find, why not start with the most common shape in the universe, which is the Boonsburg Egg. From cells and atoms all the way up to the shape of the universe. You will find that it's there. It's not it's the default shape, so that everything in the universe is able to harness gravity as a fuel source to help duplicate its own genes. And how does it duplicate its own genes? What is this? Well, it's in the form of electricity. It passes it on. So everything within the Big Bang is duplicating its own genes, which means everything is getting more and more magnetic, which means everything is pushing off of everything else equally. And you'll find how, in other videos I explain how it's passing the genes off to the mother star, and you'll begin to find out that Starlight is a genetically encoded egg being repelled by the mother at opposite the speed of her gravitational pull. So she's pulling in opposing genes at 186,000 miles a second, and yet she's repelling her own eggs at 186,000 miles a second. And then, but where do these eggs go? Where they're flinging them out there, where does it go? Well, once it goes beyond its mother's own limits, it stops. And people say, how is this possible? You'll learn in time. But if it stops, what is it? Plasma. All of that plasma that's out there, nobody knows where it's coming from. What is it? Oh, we don't know what it is. Well, it just so happens that there's one experiment that if you run an electrical field through a magnetic field in plasma, and only in plasma, so it's an electrical field is E and a magnetic field is B. If you run an electrical field through magnetic field in plasma, plasma begins to self-organize. It's the only thing that begins to self-organize. Now, as we know, the only things that self-organize are living. They're living things. So it means something has begun. It turns out that it means the knowledge is already inside the quanta of light. Which, and since it's it has to be a particle and an egg, or a particle and a wave. Well, the mother's magnetic field is the wave. It is, but it's an egg being repelled. So it fits the Einstein theory. But when it basically when it begins to self-organize, what's happened is it just got fertilized. It's basically it's beginning a life of an entirely new universe. So all of the knowledge of the universe is contained on a single quanta of light. If we can put all the knowledge of the Library of Congress on a head of a pin, or smaller, why couldn't the universe, have all the knowledge of the universe to grow in the universe on a quanta of light. And you have to think of it as like it's a rose bush that flung out her seeds. Well, when the seed sprouts, you don't just assume, oh, there was nothing before that, it's just this. No, it's been generation after generation after generation passing on its strongest genes. Same thing with our universe, which means our universe also had a mother and a father. And if you look around too, you'll see just a great many things. Be sure to look up at the ceiling. And you will, and also there's a Boonsburg Egg on a ramp. That one actually is rolling a ton uphill. That can easily be pushed and rolled, as you'll see in the videos. And actually, I did it several years ago at the Arcana Gallery in Los Angeles. Arcana Bookstore in Los Angeles, where I proved that because their floor was sloped at approximately 1.5 degrees, and it was proven that there were people who were rolling these things. I was not present, and I just so you see, you will understand that there's so much more to this. This is just the tip of the iceberg of the knowledge. Not only have I proven how they built the pyramids, but I've also proven that the things that they are holding in the hieroglyphic pictures, they may be religious symbols, but I personally believe they are tools used to build the actual pyramids. And they're very function-specific tools. And it would be, imagine if you saw, like, the plumbers union, somebody for the plumbers union holding a wrench and a plunger, you would just, if you didn't have plumbing, you'd think that was, it must be religious. Whenever you hear experts say that's just religious, that tells you they don't know what they're talking about. Because how would they know? So I, as an inventor, because I believe the hieroglyphs and the Egyptian hieroglyphs can only be deciphered by inventors. And you will see there are function-specific tools used on the ramp. Now, when you look at the ramp that's on the table in there, where Jimmy J.J. Walker Kid Dynamite's feet are, dangling off. The thing I didn't have yet, which I figured out later, is they would have had a giant tread wheel stuck right there in that spot where his feet are. And the tread wheel, they would have had, I believe the women worked also on the pyramids. They would have been up where Jimmy J.J. Walker Kid Dynamite is. And that way they're out of, they're able to not only walk on the tread wheel, which is what ends up turning the spools, and the spools end up pulling the ropes. And, they're part of all of that. But the tread wheel would have been like around 6 to 8 feet, somewhere in there. So here's a big circular thing right there. And you look, there's an upper canopy where there's 2 sets of ropes, as one's being pulled up, the other's being pulled down. It's unraveling, and they switch it. Underneath is where the rope goes down, and it goes under the Boonsburg Egg and then rolls it up. Now, you'll see G.I. Joe, he's past, it would have already gone up. And now you would have had another ramp right there. But in that wheelhouse where he just came out of would have been a Lazy Susan, which turns. They could send that big stone in toward the center, or have it keep going up, because they built the pyramids, layer after layer, but they didn't just do one layer at a time. They got the stones piled up in one area, they keep piling on top of that and that. So it was built in a great many areas at one time. And if you would, a lot of the writings are hard. You can't see them. They all got swirled. I don't know how to fix. I don't know how to fix that on this in this virtual reality inside the workshop. But if you just go to boonsburg.com and click on the picture at the top of the workshop, just go to the town's website. And just click on that picture, and you will the big giant workshop picture. This picture will come up in a flat version. All of the writing is there, and you'll understand all the knowledge of the universe and how to make a Boonsburg Egg. And I hope that you will share the knowledge to make Boonsburg Eggs, because I believe, in my constitutionally protected opinion, that not only is it how they built the pyramids of Egypt and Stoehenge and Easter Island and Coral Castle. Oh, and if you're a Coral Castle fan, just so you know, those are not moons. Those are actually Boonsburg Eggs you're looking at. that's what he used. That's why he kept breaking so many of them and turning them into rocking chairs, because there's no reason somebody needs to keep making more and more moons. And if you doubt me, just see the big giant moon thing, which you're telling yourself it was a moon. He didn't tell you that. He just put a little tiny planet next to it, and you say, oh, those are moons. Well, no, if you look closely, you'll realize I've never seen a moon larger than a planet, and he only makes these crescent moons. And then you'll look at like his fountain, and you'll see that there's actually an area jutting up, which is counterweight. It's in the counterweight position, so he was actually making these things circular too. But there's no reason to have counterweight sticking up on a fountain. Okay, that's just my constitutionally protected opinion. So, but you can read this and see all the pictures, the little diagrams I have if you click on the picture, and it makes a great screensaver. That's what Mother said. She said that she made me put that as a screensaver because she likes the colors. Okay, thank you. Now I turn this on. Somewhere in here. Yeah. Hold on, Mother. Oh, Mother reminded me, I forgot to mention when I started at Jimmy J.J. Walker's feet, where they were dangling, that's where the treadwheel goes. And one of the things, I could not find how they were, every position on the ramps at the pyramids, it was a military hierarchy, where they would wear very specific hats in the hieroglyphs, in the Egyptian drawings. And the hat indicates which position you worked on, and I can tell you which part of which hat means what. And there's some that's the person who was responsible for the upper canopy, and there's very specific things, and I could not find a hat. Oh, and then so if you had two positions on your hat, that meant you were the overseer of the two, you were the person in charge of those two, and then if there's three, or if you had the whole ramp thing, you were the big boss. And then if you had the egg over your head, the Boonsburg Egg shape, you were considered, you had the knowledge, and people were always in reverence to you, so you didn't do any work. But where Jimmy J.J. Walker's feet are was where the treadwheel was, and down below that too, there's a little tiny peg area, you can't see it, but it's where you hook the rope, which then goes down, and long story, you'll have to look at the video, which explains it clearly. But when I had the little hook, it dawned on me that hook actually matched the exact positioning, very specific piece. It matched the positioning of the Eye of Horus thing. That eye with the little slope with the curly Q at the bottom and the big eyebrow. And I realized that the Eye of Horus is actually the artistic rendition of the entire ramp. And where Jimmy J.J. Walker Kid Dynamite's feet was where the treadwheel was. That's the big eyeball. Because Boonsburg Eggs do not have a center point, but yet that eyeball always has a center point. And everything fits. I can explain how, why, and what, but it's, just so you know, it's an artistic rendition of the ramps that were used at the pyramids. Okay, thank you. All right, I forgot to say that when I was the treadwheel, they were using treadwheels at that time for irrigation, and they still use them today. So it's proven that this is a very specific thing, and they also, one of my theories for the Boonsburg Eggs to be real at the pyramids, they'd have to know how to laminate. Well, it turns out the Egyptians invented lamination. But what I forgot to say was I could not find a hat that represented the person who did the cranking of the spools. It's one area I could not find. And then it dawned on me that nobody cranked. They did not have anybody in that position, I bet. And then I thought, well, what else could they have done? And I realized they had those giant treadwheels for irrigation. And at which point it all fit together. And not only that, they even go into levels of drawing very advanced bevel gearing, which is fascinating, just like you have on the inside of grist mills, even down to the grist mills have like 8-sided shafts with multiple gears on them. They're drawing multiple gears on 8-sided shafts. So they actually have advanced knowledge of the inner workings of those type of things. But it was because I couldn't find the hat that it led me to that new idea that the people walking on the treadwheels to turn the spools instead. All right, thank you. Oh, and I also forgot, if anybody out there can identify any of the props, I'd be greatly appreciative. As I said, there's things from Twilight Zone and TOS, and Outer Limits TOS, and $6 Million Man, and Close Encounters, and Future World, and Westworld, and there's like probably thousands. But these all individual panels, the computers don't assume that they have to stay that way, except for this giant Sage computer, the one with the Boonsburg Motel on the front of it. That's actually from the government's missile defense system. That was the heart of it. There were 12 of those installations around between the U.S. and Canada from the Cold War, and they were turned into movie props later on for and specifically Man for Uncle. That was and Girl from Uncle. So thank you. Any help, I'd greatly appreciate it.